Hi everybody, welcome to episode 129 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. My name's Carol. I am Knitsnpurls on Ravelry, and I live in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, not too far east of Vancouver, where we are enjoying a spectacularly beautiful sunny day today, and it is so welcome after what seems like weeks of rain and drizzle and overcast skies. I know it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it, and it's just so nice to look out the window, see fresh snow on the mountains and blue sky, and to dress in something other than a fully long sleeve shirt or a sweater. Felt good to put on, I guess, what, 3/4 length sleeves today. And I went out a short time ago just to take some pictures of the mountains, and didn't feel cold at all. I'm kind of kicking myself because I really should have gone out this morning for a walk. I thought about it, but even though it's Tuesday today, it kind of feels like Monday because we had a long weekend. Yesterday was Family Day here and in several other provinces across Canada. So I'm still a little bit in long weekend mode. Didn't really want to get going quite that soon in the morning and be that energetic. And sort of was the same with podcasting. I had gotten up planning to podcast on Tuesday as usual. And then I got working on a sweater that I will talk to you about in a little bit, and wanted to get to a certain point. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll podcast tomorrow instead. And then I thought, no, better sit down and do it. And I thought, wow, if you record quickly enough, you could still get out for a walk before the sun disappears. But then that was a little while ago, and it's now after 3 o'clock. So we'll see. I might be pushing it. Anyway, hello. How are you? If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks so much for coming by and checking out this little podcast. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming by once again to spend some time with me. Thanks to all of you who reached out last week. You had so many kind comments about my Weekender sweater. Thank you. Hopefully you could tell how happy I am with it, and I appreciate all your kind feedback. And speaking of that, just before I sat down to record, I was on Ravelry to check something out, and I had a note from a Ravelry friend and viewer, and she had a question about my Weekender. So I was really glad she asked it, because it's something I had planned to talk about last week and had totally forgotten about it until I was editing the episode, and by then it was too late. So what she wanted to know is if I had altered my sleeves at all. She said she was finding hers were too tight, and she was going to take it back and pick up more stitches around the armhole and then work fewer decreases for the sleeve. And I did not alter my sleeves. I did knit them as written. And they are close fitting but not too tight. And they did relax a little bit, stretch out a little bit with blocking. But at the time when I was picking them up, I remember thinking, wow, this isn't a lot of stitches for this much armhole. And when I knit my sweater, as I explained last week, I had begun the shoulder shaping 2 inches earlier than instructed. So my shoulder to armpit depth is less than it's supposed to be. And even so, I picked up my sleeve stitches at a ratio of 1 to 2. 1 stitch for every 2 rows of knitting. And that's unusual. Usually a pickup rate is like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, what if I had knit the armhole the circumference it was supposed to have been I would have definitely needed to pick up more stitches then. I just don't know how you could have spread them out and not had this area pucker. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are going to knit this sweater, that you might decide you need more stitches in your sleeve to start. Obviously, your mileage may vary, but like I say, I found the 2-to-1 ratio that I used quite, or 1-to-2 ratio, I guess, kind of skimpy. And it worked out, I think in part because it's knit, a little bit fairly loosely. Well, it's not though, really, if I think about it. It's not unusually loose, this sweater. So anyway, I thought I would bring that to your attention this week. And I'm wondering, as I'm looking in the camera, if this color is going to show up more true because of the sunshine today. I just cannot seem to capture it no matter what I do. It truly is a teal blue rather than a blue. And it just never translates in the video or in my photographs. So I don't know, but it is a really beautiful shade of yarn, but definitely teal blue, not blue. And I'm a little itchy, I got a little fuzz that attacked my face there. Besides that, I have I guess 3 works in progress that I will talk to you about today. I'm just going to make sure that doesn't fall. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants because I'm recording later than I planned. I did not take the time to write out show notes because otherwise I'd be even later than I planned. I have things around me, and I do have my show notes book in front of me if I need to flip back and refer to the name of a designer or project or something. Yeah, so let's get at it, shall we? First thing, something you've seen before, I'm working on my winter comfort socks. So last week I showed you this finished sock, and I had started sock number 2, and I am just beginning the gusset decreases. So picked up for the or worked the heel flap and heel turn, and picked up for the gusset, and done, I think, about maybe 6 rounds, something like that, since then. So they're coming along. I will probably knit on them again while I watch the podcast and edit it. I tend to do that, so these should grow a little bit more today. The yarn is from Fiber Nymph Dye Works on her Bounce base, and it is the Winter Comforts colorway, which was part of the 2019 Holiday Harmonies collection that I was knitting on and opening up before Christmas. So those are coming along. Take a sip of tea. The next project you've also seen for several weeks. It is my Zweig by Caitlin Hunter, and it has gotten longer. You can see the body is growing. I believe I have one more waist increase to work, and then knit for a little bit, do some ribbing, and then the body will be done. So this is getting very close to the end of the body. I'll bring it up closer so you can see the detail in the color work and the lace section, and then in the texture pattern that's on the body. So as I explained or have explained before, I am altering the pattern in that I am adding waist shaping. And originally I had tried to do it on the front and back, as I have done in the past, because I really like how that looks, but it was breaking up the pattern stitch too much, and so I moved the waist shaping to the sides, and that's working out really well. See if I can hold that up. Not sure how much you'll be able to tell, but it's yeah, working out just fine. The yarn, I realized I've been telling you the wrong yarn all along. It is Midnight Cravings, but it is not Sweet Sock. It is Lush. It is 100% superwash merino. And the main color is basil. And then this natural color with the speckles in it is pesto. So that's actually what I went to look up on the computer. Before I recorded, I thought, oh, right, this is Lush. I could have sworn I put Sweet Sock down on my project page, and I had. So that has now been fixed. I believe the Sweet Sock would have some nylon in it, but the Lush is just a straight up superwash merino fingering weight yarn. So yes, continue to be happy with how this is turning out, and continuing to enjoy working on it. Except that I got a little, I don't know what you call it, bug in my brain, and couldn't stop thinking about it, and really wanted to explore this idea I had. And so I put down Zweig and went to town swatching for another sweater. So, and it's been I guess a journey is probably the best way to put it. Let's just start first things first. I have shown this yarn before. It's all tangled up here. I have 3 balls of sweet fiber. I've been calling it Sweet Sock, but it's Super Sweet Sock in the driftwood. Yes, driftwood color. You can see the skeins are quite different from each other. And I plan to knit a sweater just out of the 3 skeins. And then before Christmas, I was at 88 Stitches, which is where the dyers, that's a shop that the dyer's mother owns, about an hour's drive from me. And they had a pop-up shop for sweet fiber yarn, and I bought a set of mini skeins. Just gonna see if I can show them all to you like this. I only see 4 in the camera. I am holding 5. Hang on. There we go. And when I got home, I realized that, I had those 3 skeins of the driftwood, and I thought that it would make a really nice colorwork sweater. So I've sort of, in my mind, been thinking about what sweater that might be. And then I was watching Stockinette Zombies podcast, their most recent episode, I believe, and Megan had finished a Hinterland sweater by Jen Steingass, and here is a very poor photocopy of that sweater. It is not striped. That's my printer, but I'm going to bring it up close so you can see the colorwork design. Now, this sweater, as the sample, is knit with one body color, and then uses a color changing yarn for the color work. And I thought it would be really neat if it was done in different colored yarns. And I envisioned, you know, knitting using the green to knit the trees, and brown for the trunks, and put some blue here. And I wasn't quite sure how it's all going to work out, but I wondered if that was possible, and went looking through projects, and I actually found a project where someone had done that in a very different palette of yarns. I thought, yeah, I could do that. It would mean that on some rows I'd be carrying 3 colors instead of 2, but I did that on Birkin, and I thought I would be able to do that. So then I started swatching, because one concern I had was that that there wouldn't be enough contrast between the yarns and my main color, especially with this color. This is actually one of my mini skeins is actually driftwood, and you can see how very different driftwood looks from these. So I thought, well, I should be able to do it. Also, though, of the two, this is the closest, right? But most of the color work is done with a darker yarn, and I wanted the contrast. So I thought I would be better off contrasting, say, this and this, than, you know, this and this, which might not be enough contrast. So I had visions of doing the yoke in the lightest skein, and doing the bottom of the sleeves in the lightest skein, and using that as a background to the color work, and then doing the main part in the darker colors. And I started swatching. I swatched just little pieces, and I was, I guess, lazy is part of it. In order to swatch in the round, I would have had to cast on a fair number of stitches, and then in order to be able to really do the color work easily, because if I'd only cast on, say, 48 or something, done like a sock tube, it wouldn't, I was lazy about it, and I also didn't want to fiddle with knitting in the round for that few stitches. So I ended up swatching and going back and forth and carrying yarns, and that was a mess too. And all in all, I concluded that, especially with this yarn, that there wasn't going to be enough contrast between this and this. So then I took a couple of different skeins of completely different yarn. One was a variegated, one was a tonal, and just swatched with those to see if maybe that's what I would do instead. And I wasn't completely happy with that either. One of them I preferred to the other. But I really wanted to use this color palette. And I decided the only way I was going to know for sure was to start knitting the sweater and see how it looked sort of as a whole. Because the little swatch didn't really tell me a lot. And my vision was that I believe you would call them like stars, the top part above the trees, I sort of envisioned as snowflakes. And that's why I really liked the idea of the lighter yarn. And so that's what I did. I cast on the sweater, and I've been knitting it. And just before I set out to record, I had completed all of the light color, all of the first color, which brought me partway into the trees, and it was looking really bumpy and lumpy. There's a lot of increases in this area, for one thing. Plus, whenever you're doing color work, it doesn't always lie flat until you block it, so I was curious how that would look. So I gave it a steam and kind of flattened it out so that I could really get a truer picture of how it was going to look. Now, I haven't held it up to the camera yet, so I'm curious to see how it looks from a distance on the camera. But this is what I have so far. What I'm happy to see looking at the camera is that the trees, definitely there's enough contrast there. I was a bit concerned about it. In my swatching, I wasn't sure that there would be, but I do believe there's enough contrast, definitely for the trees. And at least from here, even though you won't be able to see all the individual stitches because some of the variation in this base yarn is basically the same color, I can see in the camera, you can see like a whitish, whitish specks. It looks very rustic, which is what I wanted. The yarn is tonal, as you can see, and I think I'm going to continue on. I understand the idea of color work is it's supposed to be contrasty and stand out, but I really like this look. I'm going to hold it a little bit closer. And even as I hold it closer, I can see more of the stitches in the light color. Again, it's not as defined as the trees because some of the stitches in the base yarn are the same color as the color work, but you know what? I think it's going to be okay. So my plan is to, let's see how much you'll be able to see. I don't want to show the chart because of obviously copyright issues. Hopefully you can see here. Or maybe it's better, okay, better on the sleeve. So I'm planning to do the trunk in brown, and I think I'm going to do this first little bit of color work here also in brown, and then I'm going to switch to this blue, again kind of a tealy blue. I think the color is blue, oh no, it's not blue spruce, it's oh yeah, this one, I don't know what color it is. Some of these minis had color names written down and some didn't, or this one didn't anyway, and I don't know if it's Abyss or Marshland or Midnight Sky. I've been on Sweet Fiber website and on the Sweet Fiber website and on Ravelry, and I'm really not, I feel like maybe it's Marshland, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that I'm going to do next, and then this colorway is Trellis, and it's kind of brown and lavender, and that's, I'm going to do the this part at the bottom in that, and we'll see how it goes. I did consider for the stars trying a gold yarn, and I pulled some out of my scraps, and the thing is, I really just like that idea of it kind of being snowy rather than starlit. And I think part of that stems from my vision with this name. So it's called Hinterland. And if you're Canadian and of a certain age, you may remember watching TV and seeing Hinterland Who's Who. And Hinterland Who's Who were little short segments that would come on before or during or after a TV show on probably CBC or CTV, a Canadian TV network in any case. And they're little vignettes about Canadian animals in the woods. And this whole sweater to me just has the feel of especially Eastern Canadian forests, although we probably have more. Evergreens are very prevalent out here in the West, but I just had this vision of, I don't know, Canadian wilderness, and I chose my stitch marker with that in mind. It's this little canoe with paddle. So that's just what I think of when I see the sweater, and obviously my color choices and the more rustic look, or the less defined look, is very different from the original. But I'm really excited about it. So I will continue to do my ginormous swatch, which is my sweater, obviously. And, worst case scenario, I don't like it and I take it out. I am not planning to cut any of the yarns until I reach a definitive conclusion. Although I have to say, having steam blocked it a little, and like I say, seeing it even just on camera from a distance a little bit, has given me renewed hope that this will in fact work. So stay tuned. You'll know soon enough whether this becomes a success or a failure. But I've been enjoying the process in any case, so it's not a complete loss if I decide to frog it, because that's what knitting's about, is trying things and trial and error, and trying to take what your vision is and turning it into a finished product. So at least that's what it is for me, and so I'm kind of excited about this. The downside is that I haven't been working on Zweig for a few days because I've been playing with that. But it's okay, I'll get back to it. That will make for some good TV knitting, way better than Hinterland. I have been doing some more reading, a couple Agatha Christie's to talk about. So first one, Destination Unknown. More like a spy novel than a typical Agatha Christie mystery. It was written mid-50s. Has a theme of like communism kind of running throughout. Very different than her usual, but it's equally enjoyable. Then moved on to Hickory Dickory Dock, which goes back to her usual whodunit format. I know I've read this, I'm going to guess, at least twice before, because the story is familiar, but I don't remember how it goes, how it ends, put it that way. I'm about halfway through, I guess. Poirot's secretary, Miss Lemon, her sister works in a boarding house for students, and there's been some goings on there, and Hercule Poirot gets involved in that. So also enjoying that, of course. Not tons going on this week. I babysat again Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Lived long enough to take my younger granddaughter to Strong Start again. If you don't know what I'm referring to, check out last week's podcast. Cameron was involved in a bonspiel this weekend. He was supposed to, his team played Thursday night, but he was at a retirement party. So if they'd won, they would have played Friday night. As it was, they lost right at the end. It was a close game. So they didn't play till 10:15, I think, on Saturday morning. So Cameron was home for Valentine's Day, or the evening anyway. We don't really make a big deal out of it, so we just had our usual appy night, and Cameron brought me some beautiful red roses. They're probably the best roses I've had. They have stood up incredibly well, and I know he just got them at a grocery store. They're not from a big fancy florist or anything, but man, have they ever lasted. They're equally as beautiful today as they were Friday. So then he played 3 games on Saturday, lost one, another close one, and then won one, and then their last one, unfortunately, they just got shellacked. And that was the only game that I went and watched. It was Saturday evening. If they had won that one, they would have played the next day, but that was it. They were done. And in a way, that was good anyway, because Cameron was coming down with a cold and not feeling that great. So that gave him all day Sunday and all day Monday to just, more or less, just to relax and get better. And he's definitely feeling a lot better now. So that was Very good. So I think that's about it. It's been a fairly uneventful week. Outlander's back. Have you been watching? We recorded Sunday's episode. We watched it last night. I just knit on my sock during that because I wanted to be able to really pay attention. I love the clothes. The costumes are always so beautiful to see. And then got some more TV knitting coming up this week because we've been recording the Scotties, which is the Canadian Women's Curling Championships. So we're recording all of it. We won't watch all of it, but we'll probably watch at least 2 or 3 games this week. And then the playoffs will be later in the week and on the weekend. So definitely some knitting ahead. I should get more work on Zweig done then. And then we are going out this weekend for a trivia night on Saturday night. It's a fundraiser at my sister's school. And then we have a hockey game sponsorship thing to go to on Sunday. But other than that, just the usual curling, living. Tomorrow I definitely have to tackle some housework. A lazy weekend means the jobs pile up. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you are all well and that you have a good week ahead of you. So barring anything unexpected, I will be back with you next Tuesday. So take care until then. Happy knitting.